I've got on my no shelf control because this is a combo video. I was saying to myself, well, I was putting off, let's put it that way. I was putting off doing the wrap-ups for these months because I was like, I have to film so many videos for wrap-ups and I just didn't have the time or energy, especially near the end of December. I was like, I'm into editing videos, but filming them is not for me right now, and I feel like this is still a weird angle. I was really putting off everything that was going on, and I'm like, I still have September wrap-up, I have a November wrap-up, I have an October wrap-up, I'm gonna have a December wrap-up. And then it clued into my brain, what videos did I used to make? Combination wrap-up videos. When I didn't read enough books in 2 months, I put them together. However, there's a lot of books here to talk about. I have several books from September, October, and November, 3 months, but I just don't have the time and energy to separate them into different videos, and that is why this is here. So welcome. I will do these in order from month to month. I will show you my bullet journal pages. Excuse my bullet journal, it's a little chaotic right now. I'm working on a project in it. And I will tell you there was readathon that I did in September. So here is my September colors. They were green and pink. And here was my page tracker. As you can see, I did really good in September. September was the biggest reading month I have here to talk about. I did read 9 books. And then what I did read them for was the Magical Readathon hosted by G from Book Roast. So I will tell you all the prompts and stuff, but this is the map. I feel so awkward showing this. It was lead to the School of Illyrium, and there was 7 books that were on the map plus 3 for the character creation, but I ended up doing 2 out of the 3 character creation. So I'll let you know what those were as we get to them. So for September, the first book I ended up reading was the Voyage of the Basilisk, a memoir by Lady Trent by Mary Brennan. I gave this one 5 stars. This, I think, is my favorite book in this entire series. This series we follow the woman of Isabel. In this book she is not Lady Trent yet. She doesn't have a title yet. But she's working through every book on how she's more and more recognized in the natural history community for being a researcher for dragons. In this one, she goes on a voyage around the world that is self-funded by science people who want to know the natural history of dragons, and they follow the basilisks, which start off as serpents and then evolve as they grow older into colder waters and such. She brings her son along on this one, and she meets some really awesome characters that I really like, and there's more amazing artwork in here. Let's see if I can find a picture of one. Actually, I like the picture of her comparing her son to the basilisk head after they get one on the boat, because they do travel via boat. And in this one, my favorite part in it is that they end up shipwrecked on an island, set of islands, and they aren't allowed to leave the island that they're currently on. But since Isabel dresses up as a man to do all of her research and she's asking about dragons, they think she is a dragonborn soul, which is like a third gender that they believe in, and they marry her to a woman on the island so that they can keep her soul on like this plane of existence. And it's super cool, and she doesn't even question it. She's like, I get to learn about dragons, but I have to marry this woman. Alright, I'm doing it. Which is really funny, and I really very much enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. Now for the prompts, this one I used for a book with a map. This was the first prompt on the list, so here's the map inside. But I love this series so much, I can't get enough of it. I'm going to be so sad when it's over. The next book that I read was the third book in a trilogy, and it was Spellbound by Rachel Hawkins. This one I had a lot more fun reading than the previous 2. The first book was like mid-tier, the second book was low tier, and this one was a little bit higher tier. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The love triangle in here and the attention that the main character, I don't even remember her name, Sophie Mercer, pays attention to it was a little irritating, and I definitely would have loved this book a lot more if I would have read it back in the day. I'm still humming and hawing about if I'm going to be keeping this trilogy because the side spines look so beautiful and they look really pretty on the shelf, but it's not something I see myself rereading ever again, just because it's very childish and probably a product of its time, and I'm kind of growing out of that now, which is the controversy on Twitter right now. Wow, adults don't want to read YA anymore. This was published in 2012, so definitely feels appropriate for if I would have read it in 2012. I would have loved it then. Now it's just kind of it was good, but it had better potential. And for the prompt for Spellbound, wow, I already forgot the title, it was to read a book in a school setting, and the school setting is Hecate Hall, which they call Hex Hall, which is what the first book was called. The next book I gave 5 stars to, which originally it was a 4-star read for me, so I bumped it up because it was a reread, and that is Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. I loved reading this time around. Back when I read it back in high school in grade 10, it was right before the first movie came out, because we got to do Hunger Games for our novel study instead of To Kill a Mockingbird, which I love telling people. My English teacher was retiring that year and she was like, let's do something crazy and go see a movie instead. So I ended up binge reading through all 3 in like a matter of days, and I hated the ending for this one, but now that I've read it again fully and completely after all the movies came out, I feel like I can appreciate the ending a bit more. I read this book for the prompt, read a book set in a forest/outside. So this was one of the character building books that I read. The next book I read was also a 5-star read for me, and one of my favorite books this year is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. This is like a spin-off but also part of the same series of Truly Devious. It's beautiful, gorgeous, and it is very fun. In this one, Stevie is invited to a summer camp to help be a camp counselor, but at the same time she's going to solve a murder that happened there in the 70s. And a 70s camp murder is just like the coolest possible thing to be investigating, and it was super fun, and I didn't see the reveal going where it was going, and I cannot explain to you how much I loved this. It was so good. I read this book for the prompt. Let's see. I have to keep turning pages in here because I don't remember anything. This one for read a thriller or mystery book. And I don't really like thrillers, and this is the closest to a mystery I think I'll ever like. But I would read from this point on anything Maureen Johnson published. So the next book I read I gave 4 stars to, and it is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This was super fun. I love that a lot of people really like this series and don't realize that Holly Black also wrote Spiderwick Chronicles, which I have read all except for the last one, which is just really funny to me because I've read the Spiderwick Chronicles but not this one until now. And in this one, Jude is a human with her twin sister Taryn, who get kidnapped almost because her sister is half high fae and her dad comes to bring her back to fairyland, and they kind of grow up in fairyland instead of the human realm. And there's a whole bunch of people at her school that hate her and make fun of her because she's like not putting up with their fairy shit. And one of those is the Prince Carden, who's just a dick to the point of like almost kills her on several occasions. This is very much enemies to lovers without any lovers at all in it yet, and it's kind of dangerous and in a weird way, and I don't know how I feel about it completely, but it was well written and I like the story so far, so that's why I gave it 4 stars. This prompt was another character prompt. It was read a book that features fae/elven creatures, so this worked perfectly. The next book I also gave 4 stars, and this one is This Is How You Lose Her by Junon Diaz. I read one of his books previously this year called The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. I liked that one more than I liked this one. This one was fun and really cute to see. It was nice to see somebody looking back on their life and seeing all the mistakes they made and maybe why they made those mistakes, and reflecting on being like, this is why I am the way I am today, and reflecting on how the main character Junior lost the love of his life and what he did to get from that point to that point, and what caused him to do the actions that he did, although he's only blaming himself the whole time, and he's like, I kind of did this because I went down this path, and he doesn't regret any of those decisions. He's just kind of being like, this is why I'm fucked up today and I need to work on that, and I think it's really cool. Prompt for this one is read a standalone, so it was perfect and I really wanted to read more of this author. The next book I gave 5 stars, and it is actually my favorite book this year, and every time somebody has been asking for a recommendation, I am recommending this one. So if you need a recommendation for something, please use this book. And it is She Who Became the Sun by Shelly Parker Chan. I'm going to tell you right straight up, vibes of just so fun. This is so good. This is Mulan meets Song of Achilles is what I've heard, and that's what I've just been telling everybody, and I don't know how else to explain this because it's beautiful, magical, there's ghosts, there's creating your own destiny, there's fortunes, there's war, there's ancient civilizations and just everything that I love in any story told anywhere. And that's what I have to say, because 10 out of 10, this is my favorite book of the year and probably one of my favorite books of all time. The prompt for She Who Became the Sun was a 5-star prediction, which it was, so it worked. The next book that I read was actually an audiobook and a reread. I used to have copies of these, but I lent them out and I never got them back. It is a sequel to Bad Girls Don't Die, and it's by Katie Allender. There's a picture up here, I just can't picture it in my head right now. From Bad to Cursed, I gave 4 stars to. I think it was 4 stars before too. And in this one, Casey, the younger sister, gets caught up in a demon worshipping cult somehow, and our big sister Alexis has to go in to save her and pretends to swear in, but Casey actually never sworn in, and so it gets in a huge thing where Alexis is stuck in the demon cult and Casey is not. Very interesting. But I used this one for read a book featuring ghosts / a haunted house. And the 9th and final book I read in September was Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I don't know why it took me so long to finally pick up this book, but I'm so glad that I did. It was amazing. I loved the depth of characters and thought processes and all the ethical questions and discussions that were in here. Setting me up for my ethics class next semester, but anyways. In this one, people have mastered literally everything except for space travel in the world. People don't die, you just like reset to wherever you want to. There's kind of fights about it when a mom resets younger than their daughter or son, which is really funny to see. But we follow Rowan and Citra, who are in training to become a Scythe, and a Scythe is someone who gleans people or kills people. They don't call it killing, they call it gleaning to make it sound better. But they go through training with various different Scythes, and there's a competition that they have that whoever does better in their tests and everything is going to become a Scythe in the other one, and whoever becomes a Scythe has to kill them. And it's a whole really cool thing to learn how other people do it and their viewpoints on it and everything that gets seen. The dog really wants to talk and it's throwing me off discussing this book, so I give this one 5 stars. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. And I used it for a book that keeps tempting you, because Dimitri and I decided to read this as a buddy read, and I'm not sure if he actually finished it or not. We haven't talked about it in a while, but it was sitting there waiting for me and him to start reading it for such a long time. Alright, so that was September. Let me just double check I got all of them. I did. And I made my little character card there. But it was very fun, and I don't like the name I picked, so I probably will change it later on. Next we have October, and obviously for October we picked gray and orange because that's what the colors are. October, as you can see, was a very sad month. I tried my best. I put a little sticker in here just to make myself feel better. I was very busy in October, but that's totally okay. The first book I read was Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Ozeman. This was super cute. I had requested it on Libby from my local library, and I forgot that I did, and it appeared, and I read it like literally so fast. It took me like an hour to read it, not even. I went through it so fast on my phone. I literally couldn't put it down, and then I was like, alright, I need to chill. But I gave it 4 stars. It was so cute. Definitely recommend to everybody else if you want a cute comic. And then once I finished it, I requested the second one, and it was like, oh, 2 weeks wait. And then it was like, psych, here it is. Which wasn't the next book that I read. But the next book that I finished was Anyway the Wind Blows by Rainbow Rowell, who, this is just, how many pages was this? All like 580 pages of disappointment. Decided I'm unhauling all of Rainbow Rowell's books that I have, even the ones that I haven't read, because they've been sitting on my shelves for years, and I am no longer paying any attention to this author. But the next book that I did read, I gave 4 stars to again, and it was Heartstopper Volume 2. Also super cute, better than the first one, and it just gets better and better, and I have had to refrain from requesting the next 2 because I need to chill. I cannot read series of books that fast because I cannot differentiate between the 2 of them. But 10 out of 10, loved it. October was actually kind of a sad reading month for me because then I gave 3 stars to The Last American Vampire by Seth Grahame-Smith. I'm going to keep this, but this was very weird. I was excited for this because it's kind of like the sequel to Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Abraham Lincoln is in this a couple of times. But it's following Henry, the one who who helped Abraham Lincoln, oh my gosh, defeat everybody in the Civil War and such, all the vampires and whatnot. But Henry himself seems to be at every single cool moment in history you could possibly think of. Rasputin, Roanoke, the Blimp, I don't know, Jack the Ripper. He was literally there for all of them. So this entire book is just really cool moments in history that people tend to like, with Henry in them, somehow. And the fifth and final book I read in October was Beautiful Redemption, which I gave 4 stars. To be honest, I loved it, but I'm also really happy I'm finished with the series. And this one, Ethan is dead. We follow dead Ethan's ghost trying to accomplish a goal where he's trying to get the book that fucked up his future and make him come back alive, and it's very confusing, and I'm just happy Lena wasn't in it, and that's why I rated 4 stars. So that's how I feel. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one because it was a lot. Alright, now on to November. I love my color scheme for November. I decided on like a purpley scheme. It was very fun, and I read 9 books again. As you can see, it happened a lot later in the month because I was trying to write. NaNoWriMo did not happen for me this year. Very fun, very cool. The first book I actually DNF'd. November did not start off the best. I DNF'd Along the Razor's Edge. I will insert a picture, but I do not remember who it was by. It was one of those Kindle Unlimiteds that I downloaded back in the day, and I was like, oh, I'll finally read this. I did not like the writing style. It was very much... I had a lot of problems in November with books that were like, little did I know I would be flooding the pit later. Literally, almost word for word, a line in Along the Razor's Edge that has haunted me to this day. So I DNF'd it. I think I got to chapter 5 or 6, probably 6, and I was just like, I can't handle this writing style. I was reading reviews and nobody was talking about it or pointing out stuff like that, and it literally happened twice a chapter. I was suffering so much. I couldn't do it. So I stopped. The next book I also don't have a physical copy for, but it was way better. Gave 5 stars to The Spanish Love Deception. This was so good. Halfway through me reading this, I recommended this to my best friend, and she read it in like a day, like faster than I finished it. So good. Amazing. I don't usually read romance novels, but if all romance novels were like this, I would read all of them. I think I do need to read more romance. I think I would be more into it nowadays, but we'll see. Alright, the next book I read I gave 4 stars to, and that was Bloodlines by Rochelle Mead. This is the spin-off series following Sydney, our alchemist, from the Vampire Academy series. I like Sydney's point of view especially because when we get to see Rose, Rose is like shining in all her glory, whereas in Rose's head she was like, oh fuck this the whole time, and it was really funny to kind of see that and reflect on it, and it makes me want to read Vampire Academy again, but I need to finish this series first before I read that again. In this one, she goes and stays with a bunch of vampires and Dampiers and Moroi to protect the Lissa's little sister, so that Lissa can change the law that you don't need a family member alive to stay on the throne. And Sydney is put in charge of basically protecting her, which is really cool and really interesting. And she gets to spend a lot of time with Adrian, which I'm loving so much. I've always loved Adrian. I never wanted him for Rose, but him as his own character, getting what he deserves and what he needs in life, I was like, hell yeah. So I love that Adrian in here is just like a centerpiece. The next book I read was surprisingly enough like a thriller, which is wild. And it is The Whisper Man by Alex North. This creepy little book was very fun. I had a lot of fun with this. I normally don't read like horror thrillers. I find them weird when you're reading them. I like them better in movie format, but I don't even watch the movies. Especially modern ones haven't got that creepy. I feel like older ones are definitely the creepier ones because now we just have a lot of repeat ideas and stories. But this one follows a man and his son, and someone is whispering underneath their doors and kidnapping, or underneath their windows in order to kidnap them. And it's following this right now in the present day, and then previously this happened before with a different Whisper Man, and it's really, really cool and interesting to see. And the ending of this, indeterminate creepy ending, which is what I'm here for. I loved it. Why is it whenever I film videos that my nose gets so itchy? The next book I gave 5 stars to, was it 5 stars? Yeah, it was 5 stars, and that is My Contrary Mary by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. We're back in the universe of My Lady Jane, and This time we're in France with Mary Queen of Scots and her story, and I love the Etiennes. They are so cool. Everybody who changes into a animal instead of being a Verity, which is just regular humans, and the controversy. And I love pre-revolutionary France, and I just love everything about this book. The wedding crash scene, this finally when we go back to the My Lady Jane characters and meet them all up in later time. So cool. I love this. Definitely recommend. It's super fun, lighthearted story that I will just love until the end of time. The next book was also a reread for me, and this was End of Days by Susan E. I was rereading this series. This is one of the series that got me really into reading back in the day. Back in the day, I say like 5 or 6 years ago. This is the third book in the Angel Fall, what does she call it? It's called Penryn and the End of Days, I think is what it's called. But basically, angels have come down and decided to start their own apocalypse. So they're creating apocalyptic creatures, locusts, and basically like weird looking kraken chimera things, causing a ruckus, killing all mankind. It's very fun, very cool. And in this one, they go back in time to hell, and it's really cool. Having very much fun. I ended up giving it 5 stars, which is what was my previous rating as well. The next book I read from my local library, and it is the third book in the Dead Is series called Dead Is So Last Year. Yeah, by Marlene Perez. I gave this one 2 stars, and it was probably my least favorite book in this series, and is questioning whether or not I'm going to continue. This one also had a lot of the little did he know I wouldn't see him in the next couple months. Like, I was just so sick of it this month. We're not doing that anymore. Okay, if I read a book that has that, I'm DNFing it immediately because it was so annoying this month. But in this one, someone is creating doubles of people who live in the town, and one of them happens to be our main character's missing dad. So they're like, wow, our missing dad is actually still alive. She uses her psychic abilities to read his mind, find out where he is, and there's a whole thing. Yeah. Also, her relationship with Ryan still sucks. The next book I read, I gave 4 stars to, and it is The Enchanter Heir, wow, by Cinda Williams Chima. This is the 4th book in the Heir series. It was the Warrior Heir, the Wizard Heir, and the Dragon Heir. And then this one was the 4th one. I read those 3 books like 3 years ago, and it took me that long to get to this one because this one kind of opens up a new story with new characters, and I didn't really want to do that at the time because the 3rd one ended such beautifully on a good note. Actually I think it ended on a bad note, and I was so upset, and I was like, I'm not going into new characters. But this was actually really fun. The Enchanter Heir's name is, oh my gosh, what's his name? Jonah. Jonah is the Enchanter Heir. He is very much drawing everybody in, making them want to come and join him, and everybody falls in love with him. But if you touch his skin, you die. It's a whole thing. But he got that way because at the Thornhill Massacre, where he was growing up as a kid in Brazil, somebody poisoned all their water. And this is the beginning of that adventure where he's trying to figure out what's going on. And the 9th and final book we will be talking about in this long video, I'm so sorry, is Spin the Dawn, which I gave 5 stars to, and this was so fun. In this one, Maya wants to go to, how do I even explain this? Oh my gosh. So in this book, we follow Maya, who is a seamstress and a tailor, and she gets an invite for her father to go compete to be the imperial tailor at the palace for the new emperor's wife, because they just won a war and they're getting married. And Maya's father is too old and too down on the loss of her mother and 2 of his sons that he is not mentally or physically able to handle the job of the imperial tailor. So they're planning on sending her brother, but her brother can't sew. He doesn't know what he's doing. He also has a bum leg from being in the military and in war. So Maya takes it upon herself to take her brother's identity with his permission and goes to compete as the imperial tailor herself. Along the line, she makes some friends, which is really cool, and the adventure turns into something crazier than you ever imagined. It's not just the imperial tailor. And I literally cannot wait to read the next book. I'm so excited. Favorite books out of all the stacks. Let's see. I did not have a favorite book in October. If I had to pick, Heartstopper Volume 2, probably. My favorite book, I think, in November was Spin the Dawn. And obviously my favorite book in September was She Who Became the Sun. I love that September was such a good reading month and amazing. And then October just was shit. I hated almost everything that I read. So that was cool. Great fun. And then November was also chaos, but yeah. December wrap up to come soon. I was going to include it here, but it is still December and I still plan on reading 2 more books, so that's where I'm at with that. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. If you have any favorite books that you would like to share with me from the 3 months that I just wrapped up, because that was so much and I want to stop talking, please let me know. I would love to discover them after you have, and I love the recommendations, so thank you. Have a great day. Bye!